I do come away from it, if I were to grab the haters hat, this is sort of smoke and mirrors. And if there's still going to be problems with accuracy, that's going to gate the potential for how AI can be integrated, certainly in professional settings. And then also, as far as utility for regular people, I don't know that it's offering any unique utility that's better than Google, better than me just typing in, an address I need, a phone number I need to Google. And so I think there's still an element of this where, wow, it's amazing that this technology exists. What am I going to use it for? If you're not accurate enough to be in a workplace and be relied upon by Fortune 500 companies dealing with like genuinely really, really important details, and then the market shifts to the consumer market, well, do regular people really want to talk to an assistant all day? I think is an ongoing question, and we'll see what happens. Does that make sense?
I want to apologize. So number one, I already apologized to OpenAI. I should have been able to predict the timing of their event. It's not their fault. It's my fault. Number two, I want to apologize. I sort of referred to nerds in a disparaging manner, saying they're just focused on like details and factual correctness and all these sorts of things. Turns out, Andrew, the problem is you.
Boy.
When you're worried about your Fortune 500 companies and the right questions. This is my whole point of what I'm talking about. This is why speed matters. If you're approaching the sort of experience they were actually demonstrating, where you mentioned yourself, you see screw ups, right? Like they're like, oh, analyze my face. And she's still analyzing, we're going to use she because it was a feminine voice. She's still analyzing the graph of like weather dates. And they're like, oh, no. There's a new picture. Like, update yourself. And then she's like, oh, yeah, that makes more sense. Very funny. It was actually funny. I was walking down the street and I laughed when it happened, right? But that's the reality. You think about your interactions with sort of humans. When someone is quick and witty, it's just
you're more compelled to continue to engage. That makes sense.
You're more compelled to engage. You're more compelled to overlook things. You find mistakes and you fix them quickly. The back and forth is fun. Like this, like to get the right result for an AI often requires some degree of sort of iteration or sort of back and forth. You have to like whittle it down and get to, I meant this, I meant that. That is horribly painful when you're typing, right? It's like, no, do this. And then it types it out. No, I meant this. And then it's sort of this sort of back and forth. And it's works so well that you will endure it, but it's not very fun. And if you had to actually talk that and listen to the AI talk, and oh, by the way, you can't interrupt it because it's going through this weird sort of multi-chain sort of loop, that's not fun either. That's why the user experience matters, though. It's not that you fix all those problems immediately. Right. That's going to take time. It's that the user acquires more grace to tolerate those things because the surrounding experience is easier. It's like oil lubing an engine, right? Like it sure, you could bore the piston to be like perfectly finished, sort of like.
But I think what you're actually arguing,
or you can stick some oil in there and it works better.
But I think what you're actually arguing is that it will be so cool and the chatbot will be so witty that you're going to feel compelled to use it more often throughout the day because it's going to be so pleasant that you want to.
I think being funny is actually very hard. And actually a sign of like very high intelligence.
There were a couple legitimate laugh lines from the unnamed chatbot, so it was impressive. It did jump out at me from the demo. But I think the argument that you were making is, or I guess if I were you, I would say it's going to be so cool that you're going to come up with excuses to talk to your chat assistant throughout the day. Because now I don't need any more than what I get from Google. Like, give me the basic information.
I disagree. I think that, and this is where, again, the struggle of OpenAI not being like a consumer electronics company, I think, is a challenge. And maybe there's something where there could be some sort of deeper integration with Apple. But I think you have something like the HomePod, right? And you have this sort of speaker entity microphone in the room. Like today I was getting ready and I needed to check the weather. And I was thinking to myself, like totally randomly, it had nothing to do with this presentation happening
Are
today.
you
I
missing
was just like,
Alexa?
no, I was well, I'm in a hotel. I was thinking to myself, yeah, that's right. Siri sucks. It'd be nice if it was good, because right now my hands were busy and I'd like to be able to yell out, sort of like what's the weather going to be like today? And you can imagine, even with the voices today, you can ask them how the weather is, but it's so stilted and it's so painful. You have to use the right words. And, I do have the Google devices, which I think work, generally in my experience, work decently well. It's nothing like this sort of experience, right? And I think you would find the one thing that I think, gained more humility about is that a lot of the use cases that computers are very good at, it's kind of a fool's errand to look for them to be somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
This came up in the iPad conversation. A lot of stuff that we think about as productivity has for 40 years been optimized for the WIMP interface, Windows icons, mouse pointer. Like, and so they're not going to work better on touch. They're not going to work, maybe not even on the Vision Pro, like unless we have sort of a keyboard and a mouse to use it. And that's because there's a sort of determinism that happens, a path dependency that's actually downstream from the user interface. Because we have a mouse and a keyboard, we build applications that leverage the mouse and keyboard, and we think of those applications as productivity.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, the potential here is not that suddenly we're doing work, to your point, that already works well on a computer and we're going to do it by voice. No, that sounds kind of annoying. What voice is relatively low fidelity compared to like a GUI that can provide like you think about an application with a bunch of buttons and a bunch of text fields to describe that. Natural language sounds great, but actually there's the information density in a GUI application is actually very, very high in what it's presenting to the user. We already went through this transformation when we went from like the terminal to the GUI. Yes, you can do more with the terminal, but it offloads so much complexity onto the user, whereas the GUI puts so much information density onto the screen, and then you have a precision instrument to sort of navigate it with. Is that going to go to voice? Probably not. But if you get voice to such a state that it is fun to interact with, or at least not annoying to interact with, the greenfield potential of what you could do, the applications that you could create, the possibilities of the things that computers could do with you, I think is very, very large. And yes, is it going to replace computing? No. Is it going to open up entirely new frontiers of computing? I think yes.